20 clues someone's faking their wealth. Hello everyone and welcome back to MT. Today, we're diving into a topic that many of us have probably encountered at some point in our lives: people who pretend to be rich. In a world where social media often showcases a highlight reel of everyone's lives, it can be easy to feel like you're falling behind. You see people with fancy cars, designer clothes, and luxurious vacations, and you might start to compare your own life to theirs. But here's the thing: not everything you see is real. There's a big difference between being truly wealthy and just looking wealthy. And sometimes, the people who are trying the hardest to look rich are the ones who are struggling the most financially. Before we get into it, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever bought something not because you truly needed it, but because you wanted to impress someone else? Let me know in the comments below. Now, let's get into the 20 signs that someone might be faking their wealth. 1. They're covered in logos. One of the most obvious signs of someone pretending to be wealthy is their obsession with brand names and logos. They'll have the Gucci belt, the Louis Vuitton bag, and the Prada shoes, all worn at the same time. It's as if their clothing is screaming, "Look at me, I have money." But here's a little secret: truly wealthy people often don't feel the need to advertise their wealth so loudly. They might wear expensive clothes, but they'll often be more subtle and focus on quality and tailoring rather than flashy logos. In fact, some of the wealthiest people in the world are known for their simple and understated style. They're confident in their financial situation and don't need the validation that comes from wearing a big, flashy logo. Someone who is truly wealthy is more likely to invest in timeless, high-quality pieces that will last for years, rather than trendy items that will go out of style next season. So, if you see someone who is a walking billboard for designer brands, there's a chance they're more focused on looking rich than actually being rich. 2. They're always talking about money. Another big red flag is when someone constantly brings up money in conversation. They'll talk about how much they spent on their new car, how much their vacation cost, or how much their latest gadget is worth. They might even brag about their investments or their get-rich-quick schemes. But the truth is, people who are genuinely wealthy rarely feel the need to talk about it. They're secure in their financial situation and don't need to broadcast it to the world. In fact, many wealthy individuals are quite private about their finances and prefer to avoid the topic altogether. They understand that true wealth is about more than just numbers in a bank account. It's about freedom, security, and the ability to live life on your own terms. So, if someone is constantly talking about how much money they have, it might be a sign that they're trying to convince themselves and everyone else of something that isn't quite true. 3. They're all about the flashy car. We've all seen them. The person driving a brand new luxury car, but living in a small, rented apartment. There's nothing wrong with renting, of course, but when someone is spending more on their car payment than their rent, it's a sign that their priorities might be a little skewed. A fancy car is a very visible symbol of wealth, and it's an easy way for someone to create the illusion of success. But a car is a depreciating asset, meaning it loses value over time. Someone who is truly wealthy is more likely to invest their money in assets that will grow in value, like real estate or stocks. They might still own a nice car, but it's unlikely to be their biggest and most extravagant expense. So, if you see someone with a car that seems way out of their league, it's possible that they're sacrificing their long-term financial security for a short-term ego boost. 4. Their social media is a highlight reel of luxury. Social media has made it easier than ever for people to create a false reality. We've all seen those Instagram feeds that look like they've been pulled straight from a travel magazine. Endless photos of exotic vacations, fancy dinners, and designer shopping sprees. But here's the thing: social media is often a carefully curated version of someone's life, and it doesn't always reflect the reality. Someone might post a photo of themselves on a yacht, but they might not mention that they were only on it for a few hours for a photo shoot. They might post a picture of a fancy meal, but they might not show you the credit card bill that came with it. This means a lot of people are going into debt just to impress people they don't even know. Truly wealthy people, on the other hand, are often more private about their lives and don't feel the need to document every single moment for the world to see. 5. They're always name-dropping. Oh, this reminds me of the time I was in Paris. We've all heard it before. The person who can't seem to have a conversation without mentioning a celebrity they know or a luxury brand they love. This is called name dropping, and it's a classic sign of someone who is trying too hard to impress others. They're trying to associate themselves with wealth and status in the hopes that some of it will rub off on them. But people who are truly wealthy and well-connected don't need to name drop. Their lives speak for themselves. They're secure in their own accomplishments and don't need to ride on the coattails of others. So, if you find yourself in a conversation with someone who is constantly dropping names, it might be a sign that they're feeling a little insecure about their own place in the world. 6. They're obsessed with status symbols. For the fake rich, it's all about the latest and greatest. They have to have the newest iPhone the day it comes out, the limited edition sneakers that everyone is talking about, and the watch with the unpronounceable name. They're constantly chasing trends and trying to keep up with the Joneses. But here's the thing. Trends come and go, but true style is timeless. People who are genuinely wealthy are more likely to invest in high-quality, classic pieces that will stand the test of time. They're not interested in whatever is hot at the moment. They're interested in things that are well-made and will last a lifetime. They're not trying to impress anyone with their possessions. They're simply enjoying the fruits of their labor. So, if you see someone who is constantly chasing the latest trends, it might be a sign that they're more interested in the appearance of wealth than the reality of it. 7. They live in a constant state of FOMO. FOMO, or the fear of missing out, is a powerful motivator. And for people who are pretending to be rich, it can be a driving force in their lives. They feel like they have to be at every exclusive event, every trendy restaurant, and every lavish party. They're terrified of being left out, because in their minds, being seen at the right places is essential to maintaining their image of wealth and success. But this constant need to be in the know can be incredibly expensive and emotionally draining. It can also lead to a lot of financial stress, as they're constantly trying to keep up with a lifestyle they can't actually afford. Truly wealthy people, on the other hand, are more likely to be selective about where they spend their time and money. They're not interested in being seen at every hotspot. They're more interested in spending quality time with the people they care about and pursuing their own passions. 8. They're surprisingly stingy. This one might seem counterintuitive, but it's actually a very common trait among people who are faking their wealth. They might be willing to drop a lot of money on a flashy new watch, but when it comes to tipping the waiter or donating to a charity, they're suddenly very tight-fisted. This is because they're so focused on maintaining their image of wealth that they neglect the things that truly matter. They're more interested in impressing strangers than they are in being generous and kind to others. People who are genuinely wealthy, on the other hand, are often very generous with their money. They understand the importance of giving back to the community and helping those in need. They're not afraid to spend their money on things that will make a positive impact on the world. So, if you see someone who is all flash but no substance, it might be a sign that their wealth is just for show. 9. They're always too busy or too important. We all know someone like this. They're always in a meeting or on a call. They're always working on a big deal. But when you ask them what they actually do for a living, they're surprisingly vague. This is often a tactic used by people who are pretending to be successful. By creating an aura of busyness and importance, they're hoping to convince others that they're a big shot. But the truth is, people who are truly successful are often very down-to-earth and approachable. They're not afraid to talk about their work, and they're not afraid to admit when they're not busy. They're confident in their accomplishments and don't feel the need to put on a show for anyone. So, if you meet someone who seems to be all talk and no action, it's possible that they're not as successful as they want you to believe. 10. They're all about appearances. For the fake rich, image is everything. They're obsessed with having the perfect house, the perfect car, and the perfect family. They're constantly trying to project an image of perfection to the outside world, but behind closed doors, things are often a mess. They might be drowning in debt, their relationships might be strained, and they might be deeply unhappy. This is because they're so focused on the outward symbols of success that they neglect the things that truly matter, like their mental and emotional well-being. People who are genuinely wealthy, on the other hand, understand that true wealth is about more than just material possessions. It's about having strong relationships, a sense of purpose, and a deep sense of inner peace. They're not interested in projecting an image of perfection. They're interested in living a life that is authentic and fulfilling. 11. They're always talking about their investments. This is a classic move of the fake rich. They'll casually drop mentions of their stock portfolio or their real estate investments into conversation, trying to give the impression that they're a savvy and sophisticated investor. But when you ask them for details, they're suddenly very vague. They can't tell you what stocks they're invested in or what their real estate portfolio looks like. This is because they're not actually investing their money. They're just trying to sound like they are. People who are truly knowledgeable about investing are usually happy to share their knowledge with others. They're not afraid to talk about their successes and failures, and they're not afraid to admit when they don't know something. So, if you meet someone who is all talk and no action when it comes to investing, it's a good sign that they're just faking it. 12. They're always waiting for their inheritance. This is another common excuse of the fake rich. They'll tell you that they're just waiting for their rich uncle to pass away so they can finally get their hands on their inheritance. This is a convenient way for them to explain why they're not as successful as they want to be. It's also a way for them to avoid taking responsibility for their own financial situation. People who are truly wealthy are usually self-made. They've worked hard for their money, and they're proud of their accomplishments. They're not waiting for a handout from anyone. So, if you meet someone who is always talking about their inheritance, it's a good sign that they're not as financially secure as they want you to believe. 13. They have a new get-rich-quick scheme every week. The fake rich are always looking for a shortcut to wealth. They're not interested in the slow and steady path to financial success. They want to get rich quick, and they're willing to try any scheme that promises to make them a lot of money with very little effort. But the truth is, there are no shortcuts to wealth. It takes hard work, dedication, and a little bit of luck. People who are truly wealthy understand this, and they're not afraid to put in the time and effort required to achieve their financial goals. So, if you meet someone who is always trying to sell you on their latest get-rich-quick scheme, it's a good sign that they're not as financially savvy as they want you to believe. 14. They're always borrowing money. This is a big one. If someone is constantly asking to borrow money from you, it's a clear sign that they're living beyond their means. They might have a fancy car and expensive clothes, but if they can't even afford to pay their bills, then they're not truly wealthy. People who are genuinely wealthy are usually very responsible with their money. They have a budget, they save for the future, and they don't spend more than they can afford. They're not afraid to live within their means, and they're not afraid to say no to things they can't afford. So, if you have a friend who is always asking you for money, it's a good idea to take a closer look at their financial situation. 15. They're always making excuses. When it comes time to pay the bill, the fake rich are suddenly full of excuses. They forgot their wallet, their credit card was declined, or they're waiting for a big check to come in. This is because they're living on a very tight budget, and they're constantly trying to stretch their money as far as it will go. People who are truly wealthy don't have to worry about these things. They have plenty of money to cover their expenses, and they're not afraid to pay their fair share. So, if you're out with someone who is always making excuses when it comes time to pay, it's a good sign that they're not as financially secure as they want you to believe. 16. They're always trying to one-up you. If you tell them about your recent vacation, they'll tell you about their even more amazing vacation. If you tell them about your new car, they'll tell you about their even more expensive car. The fake rich are always trying to one-up you because they're deeply insecure about their own lives. They're constantly comparing themselves to others, and they're always trying to prove that they're better than everyone else. People who are truly wealthy don't feel the need to compete with others. They're happy with their own lives, and they're not interested in trying to impress anyone. They're more likely to be happy for your successes, and they're not afraid to celebrate your accomplishments. 17. They're surrounded by other fake rich people. You can tell a lot about a person by the company they keep. And when it comes to the fake rich, they're often surrounded by other people who are just like them. They're all trying to project an image of wealth and success, but they're all secretly struggling to keep up with the facade. This is because they're all looking for validation from each other. They're all trying to convince themselves that they're living the good life, even when they're not. People who are truly wealthy are more likely to have a diverse group of friends. They're not just interested in hanging out with other rich people, they're interested in connecting with people from all walks of life. 18. They have no long-term financial plan. The fake rich are all about the short-term flex. They're more interested in looking good today than they are in planning for their future. They don't have a savings account, they don't have a retirement plan, and they don't have any long-term financial goals. This is because they're so focused on the present that they can't even think about the future. People who are truly wealthy are always thinking about the future. They have a long-term financial plan, and they're always working towards their financial goals. They're not just interested in looking rich, they're interested in building lasting wealth that will support them for years to come. 19. They're always stressed and anxious. It's exhausting trying to keep up a facade of wealth. The fake rich are always worried about being exposed. They're always worried about someone finding out that they're not as rich as they pretend to be. This can lead to a lot of stress and anxiety. They might have trouble sleeping at night. They might be irritable and on edge, and they might be constantly worried about money. People who are truly wealthy are usually much more relaxed and at ease. They're not worried about what other people think of them, and they're not worried about being exposed. They're comfortable in their own skin, and they're confident in their financial situation. 20. Their life just doesn't add up. At the end of the day, the biggest sign that someone is faking their wealth is that their life just doesn't add up. The numbers don't make sense. They're living a lifestyle that is far beyond their means, and there's no logical explanation for it. They might have a low-paying job, but they're driving a luxury car. They might be struggling to pay their rent, but they're going on expensive vacations. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. And when it comes to people who are faking their wealth, their lives are often a carefully constructed illusion that is just waiting to fall apart. So, there you have it, 20 signs that someone might be faking their wealth. Now, it's important to remember that you should never judge a book by its cover. Just because someone exhibits a few of these signs doesn't necessarily mean that they're a fake. But if you see a pattern of behavior, it's a good idea to be a little skeptical. And more importantly, it's a good reminder to focus on your own financial journey and not get caught up in the comparison game. True wealth is not about what you have. It's about who you are. It's about living a life that is authentic, fulfilling, and true to yourself. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. We'll see you in the next one.